In the name of the blessed Trinity, one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
It gives me such great pleasure today to talk for a moment about our plans to reopen Trinity for public worship on Sunday, May the 2nd. Sunday, May the 2nd, we will be able to come back at some way and in some level. I don't know exactly what that will be yet, but we are so looking forward to it. I don't mind saying we are sick and tired of doing it this way. I know we all wish it could be earlier and in time for a big Easter celebration in the flesh. Yet, we look forward, nonetheless, to the 2nd of May. Each week, I have the privilege of facilitating an online clergy group with participants from all around the country. This week, one participant said that they thought that this time of separation, of COVID time, attending church only virtually, had forced their congregation, their members, to ask the serious question, what is church all about anyway? Why are we even here? Why do we bother with it in the first place? In the coming weeks, we will be inviting you, members of Trinity Church and even beyond, to share your responses to some of these questions. Yet it just so happens we can begin thinking about it today because Jesus is inviting it today. When Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell of today's event in the gospel passage, they put the whole thing at the very end of the story of Jesus, just as he is confronting the powers and the authorities. But John, he puts the same story right at the beginning of the gospel. It's as if John wants to say something significant about the identity of Jesus, about the purpose of Jesus' gospel, right at the beginning. He wants to say something about the purpose of the gospel by pointing out the building that's used for the worship of God. So he tells this story about Jesus who strides into the temple of Jerusalem, the place. He strides into the outer courtyards where there are merchants selling the animals that are required to be offered for sacrifice. And that day, the sacrifice was needed for a connection with God, a cleansing, if you would, of the person and of the spirit. The money changers he finds there are providing an essential service. They are exchanging Roman coins for temple coins, coins that can be used inside the precinct of the temple, because the Roman coins have the image of the emperor, Caesar, on them. And since Jews do not believe in making graven images, the Roman coins need to be exchanged for money that can be used inside the holy place without a graven image on it. It was okay for Jews to use Roman coins outside of the temple, but when they entered the temple, they needed to exchange them so they could use money inside the temple. Jesus will have something to say about this later on in the gospel to his brother Jews about the hypocrisy of thinking it's okay to use these Roman coins outside of the temple but not inside of the temple, but we'll leave that for another sermon. We know from other sources that earlier on this exchange of money and purchasing the sacrificial doves, animals, happened outside of the temple in the Kidron Valley. But somehow, over time, the whole practice moved into the holy and sacred spot. So John wants the reader, you and me, to see, to hear, early in the story of Jesus, that Jesus is offended that the temple, the building of God, is no longer being honored as the sacred meeting place between God and worshiper. Folks have made the temple a place of business. Even more, they have made a business out of religion. For John, Jesus has come into the world to cleanse the heart and to set it right. He has come to question how the people engage faith. He has come to raise their understanding from a rote practice to a transformation of the heart. And in a sense, without pushing it too much, Jesus' cleansing of the temple points to our question today as we ponder our return to this sacred space. The question goes something like this: what have we learned during this time? What is this place for anyway? What is this holy place doing here? And why are we a part of it? I don't mind saying that this passage, this story of Jesus, makes clergy nervous. After all, we're the ones, you might say, who are making a living off of religion. We spend our days working for the church to keep this as a tangible witness to the God of grace and love. Sure, it's possible to connect to God anywhere because God is everywhere. Yet, because we are human beings, because we are embodied, we find strength and comfort in physical locations. There's a reason why we're doing this live stream today from this sacred space and not from my living room. Even those who don't like to come here or like to come to church know it's true. How many of you have heard it said, maybe you've said it yourself, I find God at the beach. I find God on the hiking trail. I find God in the garden. And oh, the famous one, I find God on the golf course. That's where you'll find me on Sunday morning. Notice they're saying that place matters, even for them. One location is a bit more thin than others. So we note that in today's story, unlike it's often suggested about this passage, Jesus is not suggesting that the temple is unimportant. If that were the case, one would imagine him saying something like, I don't care what's going on here, because none of it truly matters anyway. The temple is the sacred location for Israel. In criticizing these money changers and cleansing the temple of them, Jesus implies that the temple has been co-opted, not that it's unnecessary. Somehow the practice of faith, the point of worship in the temple, has gotten sidetracked. The purpose is being ignored. So I wonder if in this time of separation, in this COVID time of exile from this sacred space here on the corner of Aston and Church Street in Asheville, I wonder if in the end you have experienced a deeper meaning of this sacred space. I wonder if you might be able to name how being away from this physical location, you have gained what you might say a new appreciation for it. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Maybe you haven't. But I would encourage a time to consider it. How would you describe it? Take a moment to write it down. Pray about it. Share your thoughts with a friend, another church member. Write a poem about it, a short story. Create a video clip. The whole consideration has a bit of irony to it. By being away, you come to see the true meaning even more deeply. It's something different, though, than absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's a spiritual recognition about our bodies, about our relationship with God, about the way we come together as human beings, as the Lord's people. I once heard it said, I wish I could say the Lord's Prayer the same way I said it as a child all those years ago. But don't you say it the same way now as you did then? I ask. Yes, but I wish I could feel it, experience it as I did then. So I wonder if COVID time might have helped you touch again, feel again, the first time you felt God's love. I wonder if it has helped you touch again the first time you felt God's loving grace in this sacred space. Jesus says, destroy this temple and in 3 days it will be built back up. History tells us that it wasn't many years later that the Romans did indeed destroy that temple, and this fact looms large in Christian and Jewish tradition, our theology, our practice. It looms large in the reading of this passage. But John actually says in this passage that Jesus wasn't talking about that. John says he's talking about his body. You see, contrary to as it may seem, in this overall passage, and as the history comes into it, Jesus doesn't seem to want the temple destroyed. He doesn't seem to be making a threat. He wasn't saying that the temple was useless or meaningless or trivial. It was a bit more like, if you keep using this place this way, if you keep dishonoring this place, you're going to lose it. But, he continued, you can't stop God, because I'm here to show you what it really means and how it really ought to be used. Jesus wanted the temple to be seen and to be used for the purposes for which it was created. And he wants us to use our lives for the purposes for which they were created. So I wonder how our mission at Trinity is being renewed through all of this. And I truly wonder what you think about that. I am the way, the truth, and the life, said Jesus. Follow me. And the truth of who we are, and the truth of whose we are, and the purpose of our calling will be revealed. Amen.